Well, hey again, my name is Jacqueline. I'm a corporate flight attendant and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Jacqueline Travels. Today is part 2 of my flight attendant Q&A. In case you missed part 1, I'll link it right here for you, or maybe it's on this side. I always forget and I do this every time I say I'm gonna link something. It will be up here for you. But I put out a Q&A Thursday this week and I just wanted to answer questions that you guys have asked me. It was so much fun interacting with you. You guys are very clever. You think of crazy airline situations, and I tried to answer everything for you in part 1, and I'm gonna try to wrap up everything in part 2. If you guys are interested in more flight attendant videos in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future flight attendant videos. Let's get into the questions because I still have a lot to cover. All right, first up, how do you pass the time on such long flights? It was different when I was a commercial flight attendant. When I was a commercial flight attendant, I would always have a book with me, and when service was over, I would have plenty of downtime to read. That was my favorite way to spend my time. I'm a big reader. I always enjoyed working red-eye turns because passengers were sleeping and I had plenty of time to read on a flight. But now that I am a corporate flight attendant, I don't really have the luxury of downtime. There's always something to do on a private jet. We have drawers to organize or linens to fold or catering to prepare for our upcoming flight. We detail our galleys because we cook and it gets very messy cooking on board an airplane. As you can imagine, it's bumpy on those private jets, and we're the chef and we're the shoppers and we're the food platers, and then we clean everything up, and sometimes we have limited time and I'm kind of running around like a crazy person and messes happen. So I don't get to sit down and read like I used to when I was a commercial flight attendant, but I managed to pass the time because there's always something to do as a corporate flight attendant. Okay, I debated if I wanted to answer this question. So many of you guys have asked me, how do you join the Mile High Club? And whatever floats your boat, I don't know why you think it would be a good idea, 1, to even try, or 2, to think it was a safe situation or a sanitary situation. Bathrooms on airplanes are totally disgusting. I don't even like touching my hands to anything on the bathroom, let alone like a body part. So my advice to someone who wants to be in the Mile High Club is dream a different dream. Get rid of that fantasy. It's not ever gonna be what you think it's gonna be or what you see in the movies. Airplanes are disgusting. Keep your pants on. Don't do it. All right, we're just gonna move right along. How do you deal with bad passengers? As a commercial flight attendant, de-escalating situations was so much easier because there was always more than 1 flight attendant on board. So you could say your piece, and if the passenger is not agreeing with you or hearing your side or still being combative, you can bring in a team member and they can start with their piece. And I feel like a lot of times bad passenger behavior happens because travel's very stressful. They could be going to a funeral. You don't really know what someone is going through. I feel like a lot of times these people who act up just need to be heard and need to vent, and then it's over. I would say 95% of my bad passenger situations were just people who needed to be heard and then they calmed down. And as a commercial flight attendant, I got a lot of apologies from passengers who had bad behavior. On the corporate side, I am proud to report I work for a company, therefore I know all of my clients on board, and we're teammates. We have the same end goal. And just because I don't work in a corporate office doesn't mean I am not a coworker to them. So passenger behavior on the private jet is very good. Obviously, when I contract, I don't know who I'm gonna get, but since I have a full-time job, I don't really focus on contracting. So luckily, contract trips have been a breeze for me too. But I have heard horror stories, and I'm sorry for those corporate flight attendants who have had to deal with some of the scenarios that I've heard. Another question that I got is, have your parents ever traveled on a flight that you are working? Yes, I had a 3-day layover in Costa Rica. Within my first 3 months of being a commercial flight attendant, I was on reserve and crew scheduling called me and said, hey, we actually have a great trip for you. I'm like, how are you gonna sell me this trip? They were like, no, you have a 3-day layover in Costa Rica. And I was so excited. And I told my mom and we booked her on a standby ticket. The flight was wide open. We had no problems getting her down to Costa Rica, and we just had a fun jungle adventure. I will say I got criticism from my mom on that flight. She told me I spoke too fast during the safety demonstration. I was the flight attendant doing the announcement over the PA, not standing in the aisle with the safety information card. but that's nothing new. I've been told my whole life I talk too fast. So me and my mom just had the most fun. We still talk about stories from Costa Rica. That was 7 years ago. And we still laugh, and it was just a blast. All right, the next question is, how do you deal with being away? And as a flight attendant, you miss holidays, you miss birthdays, you miss important events. If you have a child, you're probably gonna miss some significant event in your child's life. And how you deal with it is, I've cried in hotel rooms on Christmas Eve, but I try to bring the comforts of home with me. I'll bring a book that I'm reading from home and I'm loving. I'll pack my favorite PJs, and I spend so much time FaceTiming my parents, my sisters, my nephew, or my husband, who then takes the phone to the cats, so I can even FaceTime my cats. So it's definitely hard to be away, especially when there is a momentous event going on. I have shed a tear about missing things. I cried about missing my nephew's first birthday because I was in Miami on a layover, but I also tried to distract myself. So if I have a layover, I try to make it a fun layover. I try to see the sights and realize just because there's life going on at home doesn't mean I need to sit in a hotel room and dwell. Of course, sometimes I only have short layovers, so that's my only option, but you just deal with it and you make it as good as you can. I love being a flight attendant, and I definitely think that a flight attendant job is worth the sacrifices that we have to make. All right, turning to my phone for some questions that I didn't answer in part 1. Have you ever had a food disaster? I actually did answer this one in part 1. This was something that was asked many times, so I will skip over that one. All right, another question. If a client wanted to really save costs, could he or she ask you to prepare the food or buy the food instead of ordering through a catering service? Yes, absolutely. When I contract, I'm given specific budgets, and most of the time I like to either go to a restaurant or cook the food on my own, because then I have control of the food and I don't have to worry about a catering company not showing up or not providing me with quality food. If a client is trying to save costs on a private jet, I definitely do catering from either a restaurant, or I try to cook as much as I can in my hotel room instead of ordering overpriced, really expensive private jet catering. And if you watch my corporate flight attendant vlogs, you know I hardly ever use a catering company. Again, maybe it's a control thing, but I just feel better knowing I have what I need for my passengers on a private jet for my upcoming trip. I always try to source catering for myself rather than from a catering company. Next question. How does this work? If a customer wants to travel from the US to Asia and stay there for 2 to 3 weeks, do you stay with them or do you fly back to the US? All right, there's a few different ways that this could work. Generally, the flight crew, the pilots and the flight attendants, stay with the plane. We are married to the private jet, and whenever the plane moves, we move. So if the client was staying in Asia for a 2 to 3 week trip, then the flight crew generally would stay in Asia with that client. So on top of chartering a private jet, there is a cost of feeding the private flight crew and paying for the hotel for the private flight crews. Now, I've never had a 2 to 3 week layover. Generally, you get those kind of trips when you are a Part 35 crew member, and in that case, the plane would drop the clients off in Asia. People would continue to charter it while that family is vacationing. So you would fly around with the plane rather than have that vacation. And potentially you would be the corporate flight attendant who flies back to Asia to fly the clients home, or a different corporate flight attendant would either pick up the contract or also work at your company, and they would be the ones who fly the client home. So it's totally situational. On an owner-based jet, you're probably gonna stay with the airplane because the owner owns the plane. He kind of owns your time as flight crew, and you would just sit or lay over wherever the owner wants you to be. So it's very situational. It depends on budget. I can't give you a firm answer, but I hope that kind of answered your question. How do you secure the aircraft itself when you're on a long layover? So we can lock the plane. There is a key to open the door to a private jet. And also we lock the emergency exit windows from the inside of the aircraft. So if you ever look at an airplane, whether it's a commercial plane or a private jet, you can't really open the windows from the outside. We lock them from the inside. And then there have been a few times that I have flown to high-risk countries, and at that point, we have a service. It is a security service. They watch over our passengers on their flight. They watch over crew members on our flight. So they're trained in safety. They're our chauffeur. They get us to the hotel and just to wherever we need to be. But they also provide a service where they guard the airplane while it sits on the layover. So just because an airplane is parked doesn't mean it is not secure. We have keys. We have, in the private jet, locks. and we have security detail for the private jet. Another question, I just want to say that I really like your in-depth coverage. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I took a screenshot of that because that kind of made my day. Next question, as a flight attendant, do you have to work a certain amount of hours? This is different for commercial flight attendants than it is for private flight attendants. As a private flight attendant, you can contract and you control your schedule, and if you feel like working, you contract a trip, and if you don't feel like working, you turn down that trip. Or if you're a Part 91 corporate flight attendant like I am, you have a schedule and there's more than one flight attendant to the plane. So if you have a scheduling conflict, you can work with your peers and try to get a schedule that you need. Now, when I was a commercial flight attendant, we did have minimum hour requirements. Again, this was just the airline that I worked at. It's not this way across the board, but we would have to fly at least 60 hours each month. And if you had a vacation to go to and you already burned up all of your vacation time, you could try to stack those 60 hours in the beginning of the month and then take the end of the month off, and then take the beginning of the next month off, and then stack 60 more hours at the end of the following month. As long as you had 60 hours in there total, you were golden. Okay, I just looked through my notebook and my phone, and I think I answered all of the questions finally for you. If I missed something, I love these videos. I love talking with you guys. Post your question in the comment section down below for me. Or if you have any other questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns related to flight attendant life, post it down below. Please make sure to like this video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future flight attendant videos. If you guys are looking for me on social media, my Twitter is @JackTravels, that is JAC Travels, and my Instagram is Jacqueline Travels, just like it is here on YouTube. So thank you so much for all of you who participated. Thank you very much for all of you who are watching. I'll talk with you soon. Be safe out there.